Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Possibility Mindset Podcast. I'm Devin Henderson, your host, and I believe that something greater is always possible for you. All right, Cam, what's up?
I also believe that as well.
You believe that too?
Yeah.
He's not just like saying that. Like, you believe that at a deep level. There's always a greater thing to aspire to.
Yep. To a fault, some will say.
Yes. That is the trick sometimes, with knowing that something greater is always possible, but should we always be pursuing that, like, when other things are at stake? Like, if I'm like, oh, there's something better in my career, but if I chase this certain thing right now, it might sacrifice, say, quality time with my family. So you do have to kind of keep it in balance and in check. I think that's what you're saying. Yeah, that is part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so anyway, okay, awesome. Well, hey, I'm excited to introduce Cam and tell you who he is and what he's about and everything. But first of all, I want to thank Etc. Shawnee. They have been so amazing. Shannon, the manager, has been just so great about getting me spots in the schedule to use this space. They provide breakfast, and our server, Sonia, is amazing. And how are your hash browns today, by the way? Yeah?
Really good.
So it's funny because, I usually order like this veggie omelet and everything, and I text Cam last night. I'm like, hey, let me know what you want to eat, what to order. And he's like, hash browns. Like, simplest order ever. And I kind of forgotten, like, you're vegan. And so I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But you also got fruit with it.
Yeah.
So how long have you been vegan?
Over 10 years, 11 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll hear more about that. I'd like to see, like, why and how you think that affects you and why people might consider doing that. So, okay, awesome, man. We'll get to that. So, okay, if you're listening, I'd love for you to get the full experience and watch this on YouTube, because every once in a while there's something visual. So you can find me on Devin Henderson Speaker on YouTube and subscribe to that. We'd love to. We're trying to reach more people, so the more people that subscribe and like the episode, we can extend our reach and bring these valuable lessons to people who may desperately need them. Okay, and if you're on Apple or Spotify, go ahead, rate, comment. That also helps us extend our reach. And I want to give a big thank you. I know Cam's like, am I here for a reason? Am I just going to sit here the whole time?
I want to thank people too.
You got anybody you want to thank?
I would like to thank Sonia. Those hash browns were fire.
Great job. That's funny. But I want a big thank you to this is a listener at SQL_Dangolf. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm saying that right. Yeah. So thank you so much for buying me coffee. There's a feature through my podcast platform where you can buy me a coffee to, support the show, show some morale, support. But this person, coffees are $5. SQL_Dangolf bought me 10 coffees.
Wow.
I know.
Shout out to them.
I know. So thank you for that. I'll be drinking a lot of coffee now.
You're not going to sleep for a week.
I know. I'm going to spend it all today. But seriously, thank you for that. So, okay, awesome. Now that we've got all that done, let's introduce the man of the hour. Okay, everybody, this is Cam F. Awesome. So, get ready. He's got quite the bio here. He's a keynote speaker. He's a diversity consultant, event MC, and a multi-time national champion heavyweight Olympic boxer. That's as impressive as that is hard to say. You know what I mean? It's like a national champion heavyweight Olympic. It just keeps scaling up. It's Olympic what? Boxer. I mean, this is so cool. So I'm acting like I'm learning this for the first time. You're a boxer? Oh. As a motivational speaker, Cam shares lessons he's learned traveling to 30-plus countries as captain of Team USA. So Cam's Olympic journey was featured in the Netflix original documentary Counterpunch, which I am ashamed to say I have not watched it.
I do not die at the end.
You don't die at the end?
I don't die at the end. Spoiler alert.
We actually, Netflix is one of those platforms we're trying to get our kids more and more away from screens, because screens are always going to be there. It's like candy. It's like we're not like ruling it out, but it's like it's always there. So how do you kind of keep, so Netflix was one of the things to go for now, but when it comes back on, I know what I'm going to watch.
All right.
Yeah, Spirit. No, it's a kid's show. No, I want to watch Counterpunch. But so if this is a quote, this is a Cam quote. Is it okay if I quote you?
Go for it.
All right. If you can fail without being discouraged, success becomes inevitable. Man, is that possible to fail without being discouraged?
100% yes.
100% yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that's a quote Cam lives by. His secret to remaining resilient through ups and downs is keeping a positive mindset through practicing gratitude, which I have seen that play out. You're very thankful for me for the time that we put into each other. In the words of Cam, he's the most decorated U.S. amateur boxer in history, and he was also, this is a cool part, this is recent, he was inducted into the Kansas City Golden Gloves Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Thanks.
man. When was that?
Made me feel old.
It made you feel old.
Wait, I still got it? I can't be in the Hall of Fame yet?
That's hilarious. Well, that's great, man. I saw it on LinkedIn, I think.
About 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I got
I thought
inducted
that was real
in.
recent, man. That's great, man. Congrats. So Cam has basically made his mark in the youth world and the market speaking, doing motivational speaking to high schools, youths, all that. But now he's been transitioning into the corporate world, and it's going really well.
Yeah.
So because his message is versatile and something that adults need to hear.
Adults are just children with the ability to drive.
There you go.
Like
All right,
same message you give to students, like the same things we need to hear as adults. What do you think changes now that you pay taxes?
Yeah.
It's like the same issues we had, a lot of us still have.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, let's jump into it, man, because I've heard bits and pieces of your story from your keynotes, from coffees with you. I know that you had a rough childhood, man. So we talk about the possibility mindset, always asking what else is possible. You'll see that his life has just been one what else is possible after the next. So can we go back into childhood and talk about how hard that was for you and how it all started there?
Side note, I think everything is perspective. Because I think it's like 40% of the population doesn't have drinking water within a mile of their home. So when I say things were tough for me, after traveling to 30 countries, it's like, maybe it wasn't all that bad. But
I love that perspective. I mean, that's so true, man. I lose sight of that constantly.
Question,
you know what I mean?
What would it look like if you lived in a utopia where life was perfect?
Yeah.
Would it look like more people were dying of obesity than starvation? Would it look like something like that? Where we found a way to complain about everything?
Wow. Yeah.
Luxuries become necessities. And I think that's where we are in life.
Wow. That's profound, dude. Absolutely, man. Yeah, I've talked about that recently with my daughter with air condition. Like you just like it, if you go into a place where there's no AC, or you forgot to turn it on, and you're like, and it's just like, or you're in the air condition and then you go outside.
You're like,
you feel the difference, right? Where if you didn't have the air conditioning, there wouldn't be that shock factor that we constantly experience when we go from luxury to a place of discomfort.
Luxury to normality.
Yeah, to normality. There you go. What other people in those parts of the world that you're saying are struggling, or all parts of the world where they're struggling, that's like you said, that's normal to them.
My dad's from Trinidad, and they grew up in not the greatest area in Trinidad. He came to America for a better life and that whole story. But you hear the rocks, I came to America with this with $8 in my pocket, and everyone says those stories, and to me those stories were silly and irrelevant to me because my dad did that.
Yeah.
And something your dad does can't be cool or exciting. And I didn't appreciate what it was because I saw it. I saw someone stop going to school at the age of 8, came to America, started a business, helped his 12 brothers and sisters come to America. And my dad is a billionaire compared to where he was. A little bit about me. I struggled with confidence. I struggled with weight my whole life, and you're watching TV and everything's prom and dating, and you're 14, you're super insecure. I'm gain weight, and I was okay, I'm gonna join a team to lose weight, get in shape, because that's important to me. And I wasn't good enough to make a team. I tried out for every team and I kept getting cut. And I was well, how else does a person lose weight? And for a year or two, and then one day I was in class and the teacher explained how calories work. You consume about 2,000 calories a day. You burn about 2,000 calories a day. You break even.
Yeah.
And then I was you don't have to do sports to burn calories. I can do anything. And because I was a really cool kid, I had rollerblades. And I decided that I was going to go rollerblading.
You were a cool kid, man.
I was the cool.
Because rollerblades, though, are at a new place today, right? They're everywhere, but at the time...
I'm joking.
There was a certain vibe. No, I know you were joking.
In my neighborhood.
That's why.
No one was rollerblading.
Because skateboards were kind of the thing.
It was cool. Actually, in my neighborhood, It wasn't even skating. Like,
Okay.
your word.
And notice that I say we like we're the exact same age or something.
Well, how
like
old
I'm
are you?
not 10 years older than you. I'm 44.
Oh, I thought you were in your 30s still.
Thank
When
you.
you're like,
Well, earlier I said something about when I was in my 30s, and I was like, dang, I'm old now because I'm saying in my 30s. You didn't realize I was
No,
like,
I didn't know you were already
thanks,
gone,
man. I appreciate
man.
that. I'm already gone.
I joke.
I love it, man. So you're rollerblading. That burns calories.
Yeah, so
just like
I did
anything.
it morning after morning after morning,
Yeah.
6, 7 mornings in a row. And by like the 7th morning, I woke up. I was sore because I was doing this like 2 hours before school started because I have to wait an hour to stop sweating before I got to school.
Oh, right.
But by day 7, like, zero progress. No one stopped me. It was like, hey, man, I can tell you're working out. Keep it up. And then like I remember looking at my rollerblades like and thinking, do I want to do it again? Like, is it a waste of time? Mm-hmm. And I thought back to how calories work. And I was like, well, every diet you can think of is just different variations of burning more calories than you consume. The only way for this to happen, 2 ways. I can consume less calories, which ain't gonna happen.
Right.
Or I can start burning more calories. So I was like, you know what? There's no other way to do it. I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Okay.
And after about 3 months, people were like, look at Cam, he thinks he's skinny. And I would blush, bro, because I was like, it's working. It's working.
Yeah.
And I saw it as an equation. And this is what has carried me to be able to do. I believe I can do anything I want. Anyone can do anything if they follow this equation. 1 + 2 = 3. In this equation, you are 1. You should always be your own number 1. No one's going to believe in you until you believe in yourself. And this is how it looks. If you start to believe in yourself, you start to take the actions of a person who believes in themselves. Like, let's say you have like a test coming up or something. Like, if you believe that you pass, you'd study, because that's the process. And if you made the decision, oh, do I hang out with friends or do I go study? Well, you know what you got to do. So you start to study. And once you start making the decisions of a person who believes in themselves, you start to get the result of a person who believes in themselves. And then, funny thing happens, once you start seeing the results, everyone else starts believing in you. And you don't need to lean on yourself so much. That's 1 in this equation. 1 + 2 = 3.
Okay.
In this equation, 3, the last thing, is the outcome, the goal, the objective.
Yeah.
What do you want? 2 is appropriately named, number 2, because it's the crappy part of the job. It's the hard work. It's the things that people want to do. It's the waking up early in the morning. It's the going rollerblading while you're sore. It's the doing it when you still don't feel like doing it. And what I love about this equation is there's no room for your emotions. When I say if you can fail without being discouraged, success becomes inevitable. Being discouraged is a feeling, because we don't quit when we fail. We quit when we get discouraged. And a lot of us get discouraged before we even start, so we don't. So with this concept of removing your feelings from this, look at the equation as it is. Me plus burning more calories than I consume equals losing weight. And it worked. Now, the reason why I was rollerblading so intensely is I was going to go to the boxing gym. But I wanted to lose weight before I went to the boxing gym because I was intimidated. It was like brushing your teeth really well before you go to the dentist.
Right.
Or cleaning your house before your house cleaner comes over. I never had a house cleaner, but I heard people talk about it and I feel good. And so I got to the boxing gym and I was like, okay, I'm not aggressive, and I was getting bullied in school. Like, I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to spar. I just wanted to do the workout. I want to look like a boxer. So I just did a boxer's workout. But they didn't coach me because I wasn't interested. They were like, all right, do whatever you want.
Yeah. So
I would just watch what other people did. And I put logic to it. And I realized quickly that most things people do didn't make sense. They would hit the heavy bag, and like if you're hitting the heavy bag, a lot of people punch like in the middle of the heavy bag, like where someone's body would be, because they're lazy. They're developing bad habits. Like no one's face is down there. Why are you punching down there? Well, because it's easier to do. So I told myself, okay, if I ever hit the bag, when I'm sweating, I touch my face on the bag, and that's the line where I hit. If I'm too tired to hit there, I just don't throw. I just stop. Then one day after like losing, I was there. The gym was open 4 hours a day. I was there as soon as it opened, and I was the last person there every day. And sometimes when it would close open, because it was just me and the coach. And he's like, all right, I'm going to go home. And after about 6-7 months of that, my coach was like, you're in better shape than anyone else in the gym. Do you want to spar? I was like, oh, my parents won't let me. And then everyone laughed. I was like, I'm joking. I'll get my mouthpiece. And bro, I was so nervous. I never made a team before, so this is like my first competition. It was like workout in the gym.
But this is a huge moment.
I thought about this all day. I was like thinking school, like, okay, I'm sparring tonight. And I get there, and I was so nervous. And it turned out that the guy I was sparring had just recently lost a fight to a guy with one arm.
So either like he's humbled or he's mad, or where's he at?
Oh no, he sucks.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
And it wasn't one arm. It was like the dude had a nub, And they put a
Okay.
glove on his nub, and he lost the
Okay.
fight to that dude.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, he's not that good. And my goal was just not to get hit. And I did so much moving that I was like, oh, I burned so much calories in those 3 rounds. I was like, I burned more calories, I felt like, in those 3 rounds than I did my whole workout. This is all I want to do. And I was so worried about not getting hit, I was really good in defense. And then I never had a community. This is the first time I found a place where I felt like I belong. Because everyone else in the gym was like, oh, because I was big, I was heavy, so I was perfect to spar. I wasn't strong enough to hurt anyone, so I was the perfect sparring partner. And I just sparred everyone until I developed this concept of seeing punches coming before they came. And no one could hit me in the gym. And immediately I was like, oh, let's go back to the equation. 1 + 2 = 3. Me plus not getting hit equals winning. If I win all the time, I can just be the best in the country.
Because you said you're not the most aggressive person in the ring. You told me that
Yeah.
earlier, so that's kind of what that was, more of a defensive position in your boxing.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And so I decided, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have my first boxing match, and I started to fight. I didn't tell anyone for my first 4 fights because I was afraid to tell someone that someone like as passive as me was like a boxer.
Yeah.
And I could have, I was at 200 pounds, and I could have either fought super heavyweight, anything above 200 pounds, or fought in a more appropriate weight class, a little lower. But I realized that men are so macho that they're so macho that they don't use their brains. And they're all muscle. I'm like, oh, you have all this muscle. Muscle requires oxygen. You're going to get tired in the first round if I move around enough. So I was like, okay, my fighting strategy is I run from you until you're tired. And then I start to punch you, not till you're hurt, but till you can no longer defend yourself. And the ref will stop it. So is that equation 1 + 2 = 3? And my parents moved my senior year in high school, and I had to walk to the gym 6 miles every day. And I didn't have, this is back when MP3 players came out, it's before iPod, and I didn't have batteries. So for 3 hours a day, I'd walk to the gym 5 days a week, and I would just make up stories in my head. I didn't think anything of it, but if I'm going to be the author of a story, I'm going to be the protagonist. So I was like, I was kicking butt in all these stories. Like, I was winning all my fights, I had all the money. None of this was true, but I just had something to think about. But I realized I was giving myself affirmations, and I would pat myself on the back for 3 hours and then work out. And doing that for an entire year, I gained this confidence that I never had. It was disillusion, because immediately I thought, I was like, well, I'm going to be the best boxer in the country. Granted, a year before I'd never played a sport, but in a year I was like, oh, I'm going to be the best. And it was obnoxious to some people. And I qualified for the 2008 Olympic trials. I lost, but I was in the sport for 2 years. It's a pretty good accomplishment. Yeah. Turned around, I won nationals in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. I won the United States Olympic trials. I am on top of the world. Like, cocky doesn't even describe me. And I understood that certain people didn't like me, and I basked in it. I fought in a pink skirt because, sure, I look soft, but you can't beat me, so it doesn't matter.
You actually wore a pink skirt in the ring.
Yep.
Wow.
I fought in a pink skirt.
Right.
Because what are you going to do about it? Are you going to lose to a dude in a pink skirt?
Yeah.
And I would admittedly, I was obnoxious. And then I left the country to fight in Azerbaijan. I've been there 3 times, still can't spell without spell check.
Yeah.
And I forgot to tell the drug testing agency I was leaving the country. And they showed up to my home here in Kansas City to give me a random drug test. And I wasn't there. Even though I tested negative in Azerbaijan to even fight in the tournament that same week to show there's nothing in my system, but they still suspended me for a year and kicked me off the Olympic team. And I went from this like cocky, arrogant person to like this shell of a person, the same unconfident person I used to be. And I was depressed. I was heartbroken. I was so embarrassed because like Kansas City's not a big city, so like I was getting a lot of love. The Kansas City Star was amazing to me. I was like in the newspaper constantly and on TV and around here, and people would see me in Walmart like, hey, you're the boxing dude, right? I'm like, yeah. Like, you ready for the Olympics? I'm like, yeah. But then I got suspended, and I didn't post about it because I was so embarrassed.
Yeah. And what year was this?
2012.
Okay.
And I started to avoid people because I was afraid to tell the story. And if you read the ESPN headlines, it says, I failed to meet drug test requirements.
Right. Yeah, that paints a picture.
It does.
For sure.
But if you read the article, it could say, I got the minimum
it
sentence because they didn't suspect anything, but
right.
no one cares about that.
Yeah.
And maybe I was internalizing it, so I stopped leaving my house, I started drinking. I got up to 277 pounds, the biggest I'd ever been. And I was like, okay, I don't have a degree, I don't have any certifications, I don't have any skills, I'm broke. I have to go back to boxing, I have nothing else. So I started doing personal training and all that, and I lost a bet and had to be vegan for 28 days. And I didn't understand at the time that the diet entails sobriety.
Okay.
So this is the first time during my suspension I had to be sober.
Wow.
And I'm a man of my word. I lost the bet, so I said I'd do the 28 days. And I stopped drinking and was going through withdrawal. And I just being aware of how much you hate yourself. And I was like, okay,
So, real quick question, but can I pause you real quick?
Yeah.
Because, you're saying in the 1 + 2 = 3, there's no room for emotion, right? So that's if you want to be successful. Clearly, there's some emotion in your story right now.
Yeah.
And so I am just curious because there's people probably going, well, I'm an emotional person.
Yeah.
I deal with disappointment, discouragement that's maybe made them give up or want to give up.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people about that when the emotions do creep in a negative way? How have you dealt with them? How has that pushed you maybe to even be better?
I'll tell you exactly how.
Okay, all right.
2012, when I decided I was going to get back into boxing because, I know the equation, but I'd work out for 2 or 3 days and kind of fall off. And then I realized, I haven't worked out in 4 days, and I'm mad at myself again. And I was beating myself up one day, and I realized there's a difference between me in 2012 and me walking to the gym in high school. One of us liked me. And I realized I was humbled by life. And I believe words are powerful. And that's why I asked you, who's your middle daughter?
Yeah, Elsie is my middle daughter.
Now, how old is she?
9.
9. So if you look at Elsie and you're like, in your heart, your soul, anything she wants to be in life, she can be if she puts time and she believes in herself. You know that in your soul. What would it look like if she knew it? And I started to think about that, and I decided to look up the definition of humble. So if you could look up the definition of humble.
Let's do it.
And while you look that up, I'll continue.
Is it okay if I look it up here? Okay,
yeah, keep looking
right,
up.
Easier.
And
okay.
I realized what the definition of humble was, and a light bulb went off in my head. So I want you to read me the first definition.
Okay.
And think about your daughter in mind.
Okay. All right. Computer's going a little slow, so
okay. So
go to the phone here.
This completely changed.
Humble definition.
Completely
Speaking
changed.
of laziness. Okay.
Efficiency.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So you got the definition up here?
Having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance.
Okay. Now, with Elsie in mind, would you wish that definition on your daughter?
No.
Maybe that's a fluke. Read me the second definition.
Okay. Of low social, administrative, or political rank.
What about that one?
Nah.
Is there a third one that makes sense?
No.
Okay. Now, the reason why, and this is what the realization I had in 2012 that changed my life.
Yeah.
The reason why humility and humiliate sound like the same word is because they are. It's the Latin root word of lowly. So when you think about a situation, let's say you're killing in the speaking world, right? You're booking all these keynotes and everything, and then you run to me and I'm not doing too well. What do you do in that moment?
Encourage you.
Well, a lot of times we humble ourselves down to that person. You don't want to be braggy, you don't be braggadocious, right?
Okay,
so what we do is we lower ourselves down to that person.
All right.
But I believe if we continue to lower ourselves to the lowest common denominator in the room, we're doomed to be a depressed society. The idea of lowly, if you tell your daughter to be humble, if you constantly beat into her the socialization of being humble, then how is she going to excel being small? Because being lowly, you can't tell her to shoot for the stars while still holding on to the ground. And I had that realization. And I realized, I need to believe in me. Like I need to love me. And when I say being humble, when I say and I threw away the concept of being humble. I am not humble. I went out and I legally changed my last name to Awesome. Because I realized how hurtful being humble was to me. I was humbled by life. That's not a positive thing. Because people will agree, yeah, you were humbled by life. But we look at being humble and humility as a positive virtue. So when I ask this question, outside, of course, the religious context, because I want to respect everyone's religious beliefs, but who does being humble serve?
I guess with that, and by the way, I'm absorbing a lot of this. I don't know if I completely agree, so I'm kind of waiting to see where this goes.
I don't want anyone to agree with me. I don't want anyone to agree with me. I just want to challenge the way we think.
So I have a lot of questions, but I'm just going to go with the narrative. The question you're asking right now is, who does being humble serve? Well, I feel like in my faith, I'm called to be humble. So I feel like it would serve my God, it would serve me, and it would serve others.
In the working context? In like speaking or performing?
Context, yes. I guess to me, humility is more of a maybe starts inward, right? Of don't think of yourself more highly than you ought to.
Why?
That says it in the Bible.
Okay, outside of religious beliefs.
Okay. Let's just do away with faith. Okay, then what was it like? Why would I do it, or who told me to, or what?
Well, I'm seeing who does being humble serve in this, and even for your careers. Like, okay, be humble. You're getting like as a boxer. Right. Do you think I can walk into the ring humble?
My gut tells me yes. I think you could.
There's so many boxers, and this is why I know I can't, because there's so many boxers who are amazing in the gym, and they're beating up world champions in sparring. Yeah. But when the lights turn on, they don't think they deserve to be there, and they never perform to their ability. They're humbled by the big stage.
I guess what I would look at is confidence with humility. Those two working together. Or what would make it, and I've never been in the ring, but in the ring of life, right? Like competition. I mean, I would say that I think you can be humble and have a confidence that you're serving your people. Now you're not there to serve your opponent. Maybe
knuckle sandwiches.
Because if you're serving your opponent, if we're called to love all people, the fighting is not real. This isn't your real enemy in the ring, right? This is your brother that ultimately you love and you want to serve, and your humility could potentially serve him by saying, wow, even though Cam is as awesome as he is, and he can dodge my punches and he can hit hard, deep down, he loves me. He wants the best for me. So are we really? Are we all meant to be heavyweight champs and to always win, or is maybe winning sometimes look like losing, or losing look like winning?
We don't even need to define what winning is, but it's the way we carry ourselves is what I'm trying to get to. When it's time to set goals, a lot of us set goals that we think we can achieve. But you're so much, I believe, just like we said, there's greater things out there. Right. I believe there's so much greater that you're capable of that you're not allowing yourself to get to because you're being humble. And a lot of people say, well, being humble doesn't mean thinking less about yourself. It means thinking about yourself less. I'm here to tell you,
that's not true.
Ain't nobody gonna think about you more than you think about yourself. So when you do think about yourself, what are you thinking about yourself? How kind are you to yourself? It's just you in there, right?
Yeah.
Are you a great teammate to yourself? Let's say you live in the fourth floor of an apartment. You carry your groceries all the way upstairs, you put them on the counter, and then you realize you forgot your phone in the car. What do you say? Oh, Devin, sometimes we're forgetful, buddy. Let's go get that phone. That's not the way a lot of us react. Like, oh, stupid idiot, why'd you leave the phone?
Yeah.
It's like beating yourself up like that. You're making yourself smaller.
Yeah, I agree with that. We should love ourselves. Like, I wouldn't, if you forgot your phone, I wouldn't talk to you the way that I innately talk to. I wouldn't be like, you're an idiot, why would you forget that? Which I might say in my own head to myself. So it's like, why aren't I as nice to me as I'm as nice to you? I definitely agree with that. Self-love.
Self-love. I changed my last name to also. And the whole idea of I'm up here and I see someone down here, I'm not coming down to you, buddy. Sorry. I'm going to pull you up to where I am. Now, I don't think anyone's better than me. Because a lot of people say, I don't think I'm better than anyone else. I'm humble. I'm like, sure, but you also think there are people who are above you. Well, yeah. I don't think anyone's above me, and I don't think anyone's below me.
Yeah. I like that. I had a coach tell me that one time, that we do tend to look at people, they're more successful, or I'm better than them, but if we can see everyone on an even playing field. Now, the part that I'm getting hung up on what you're talking about, and maybe I'm paying too much attention to it, is that I don't feel like humility, whatever the definition might be,
so what is your definition of humility?
Holding me back. Yeah, so I guess my own definition of humility would be like being willing to make myself less to bring others up, which I know is exactly the opposite of what you're saying. But like, if we talk about, say, Christ, for he humbled himself to death, even death on a cross, right? I mean, he gave up his life. Yeah. And so if we're willing to sacrifice life, why aren't I willing to sacrifice anything else? I mean, life's the most precious thing that you could give up. So if we walk into a room and I'm like a successful keynote speaker and you're not, I don't think me going, now if I were to say, okay, tell you what, I'll start making less money, booking less gigs, then I am coming down to that level. But if I talk to you in more of a nurturing, caring, gentle way, a palatable way that you can accept, hey, I am booking this, but hey man, you can get there and you can bring them up to that level in a humble, kind, gentle way is what I mean.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that makes sense or not to you, but
what do you think about imposter syndrome?
I think it's real. I think more people have it than they admit. That's just because through deep conversations I figure out it's almost like everyone has it. It feels like at some level everyone does. I don't know if that's true or not. So don't trust that statistic. but maybe you don't. But I think that it's something that we just see ourselves as worth less. So it's a perception.
Yeah, and it's definitely a perception, and it's the way we see ourselves. It's you're afraid to ask for a raise because you don't think you deserve it, you don't think you're worth it, but you see somebody else who is. What makes that person any better than you?
Yeah.
And that's when I had that realization of, okay, I got this far. Now it's 2012. I'm beating myself up. I changed my last name to Awesome as a reminder that I am worthy, that I'm great enough, and me refusing to be humble I'm not saying be obnoxious, because I'm just lifting other people up. I'm not, but I'm not beating myself up.
Sure.
I'm going to be my biggest fan.
Yeah.
So I changed my last name to Awesome. I changed the way I was thinking. I no longer beat myself up. I started to give myself grace. I started to be my biggest fan, my biggest supporter, I cheer myself on. I returned to boxing. I won nationals every single year until 2016, where I won the 2016 Olympic trials. And then I lost in international competition in the finals on a split decision and didn't get to go to Rio. And when I lost that fight, I was in Argentina in my hotel room, and it was July 4th. And I was like, okay, I put all my eggs in this boxing basket. I didn't make it. I could go where I was in 2012 mentally, because I had a choice to make that day. And I got back to my hotel room. I made a tweet. It's still out there. And I said, lost my fight today. My Olympic run is over. Time to reinvent myself. 3 times, because it was the 3rd Olympic trials I was a part of. See what's next for me. It may not be boxing. I knew immediately what I wanted to do. And because a year before, I had met you at an open mic.
Yeah.
You told me about the National Speakers Association in 2015. I went to their annual conference a week after I lost in the Olympics.
Wow.
And people thought it was crazy that I was already moving on. And I was like, oh, if I were to go back home and just like sit and wallow, I'd hate myself, I'd cry, I'd do all that. I'm like, no, let's pick it up, let's keep it moving. Because if I could do the Olympics, I could do speaking. So, all right, what's that equation look like? 1 + 2 = 3. I got to change the equation. The equation will always change. You will always be number 1. The goal will change. Number 2 will change. And I said, okay, my goal is I want to be a successful speaker. What does that mean? Okay, first I have to learn about speaking. I have to learn about the business. I have to become a great speaker. And the approach I took with boxing is, I'm not very athletic. I get that. If you watch my fights, it's a little. I was called awkward. I was an awkward fighter.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'm not going to beat you with athleticism, so I can't let you outwork me. So if we were the same weight class, same age, and everything, and you had 100 fights and I had 3 fights, who do you think would win?
Me.
Yeah.
That's fun to say. So only in these made-up scenarios can I beat you up.
I'm sure you can magic me up, man.
Oh yeah, probably.
So I took that approach. So in boxing, because I wasn't athletic, I said, okay, I'm just going to get 100 fights, because the average boxer has like 30 to 40 fights. Like once I have 100 fights, I'm the most experienced guy in the room.
Yeah.
And I retired as the most decorated boxer in U.S. history because I just fought all of the time. I don't say I have the greatest winning percentage in history. I've just won more boxing matches than anyone else, because I allowed myself to be in that situation. I gave myself room to fail. And after you gain all that experience, I believe experience is intelligence, right? Because if we both have a task to do and you spend 2 years thinking about how you're going to do it, and then I fail for 2 years, when we start year number 3, I'm going to be so much further than you.
Now you're better than me. You had to make sure you can. Find a way to make me the winner again. Please.
Yeah. So that kind of philosophy and mind state kind of changed. And I realized a lot of people who suffer with imposter syndrome, they don't believe they belong to be there. They don't believe they belong to be there. They belong to be there. They're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
They
don't believe they belong to be there.
I do words.
That's like a.
And I will say, I know it comes off very obnoxious to people, the idea that I dismiss humility.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Could that be the name of your book, Dismiss Humility?
My TED Talk that I'm going to do is Humility is Overrated.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. All right.
Because I think people lean so much on humility as a way to keep themselves small. Because you won't wish those definitions on your daughter. So what we do is we come up with our own definition of humility to make us feel better.
Yeah.
And when you actually look at the word and the Latin word and where it derived from and the meaning of it, it's not a positive virtue, but it's a virtue that is of our nation.
I'm going yes, like I agree.
I don't want you to agree.
No, and I'm more like, it's funny because on the last podcast, which it was with an IT professional, and he was talking about other cultures, and other cultures would go, yes,
Yeah.
and it just means I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I'm not necessarily agreeing. So,
I don't.
Anyway,
the thing is, I understand this is such a sensitive subject to a lot of people's core beliefs.
I'm about to cry.
If you cry, I cry because it's like throwing up.
All right,
I'm very emotional.
We just start crying, throwing up, and hugging, and people are like,
unsubscribe.
No, it's good. And I also, admittedly, take a long time to absorb a new idea. Yeah. So, like, for me to sit here and, like, process all of this right now about humility is like, well, but I'll probably listen to this later and be like, gain some more clarity on what I think. Yeah. But I appreciate a fresh perspective and a peek into your mind. Yeah. Because
it's not normal in here.
You've been very successful in your life in so many avenues. And so it's just good to hear, like, what's going on up there, man? And so this is really good, man. I'm appreciating this.
Thank you for sharing that. And I often get like I am what's the word? Delusional. I get delusional, and it used to bother me because I genuinely believe it. You think I'm delusional, so you don't think I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And I would see it as like a slight. Yeah. But now I see it as a positive.
Delusional about what? About what you can achieve?
What I can achieve.
Yeah. Nice.
And
nice.
I think that I don't have imposter syndrome. I think I deserve to be everywhere I am.
Well, it sounds like to me like a lot of adults just lose sight of dreams as a kid. Like as a kid, we're like, we can do whatever we want to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if the right people believe in us, and
who's the right person? Who's the right person?
All right.
You are.
Right. Do you think it matters though? I mean, can people have an influence on our life and help us believe in ourselves more?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So okay, cool.
Oh
so,
I'm very big on that. So, but the thing is, if you don't first believe in yourself, everyone else can believe in you as much as you want, and it's not going to really help.
I don't know. I think people can help you find that belief in yourself.
I agree with that.
You know. So yeah.
So anyway, we don't need to get stuck on the humility thing. That's just a small part of my life, but that allowed me to have the confidence to get on stage. Now, the whole idea of that is like when I got into speaking, I understood just like comedy. It's like, okay, I'm going to suck in the beginning. I
love that idea. I'm like my listeners know I'm about start ugly. You know, it doesn't even mean like you're out there to like be sloppy or careless. You know, it's just about let's just get out there, and it's going to be sloppy and careless. That's not the goal, but that's definitely going to happen. But then like you grow from there. Right? Yeah. So I love that, man.
Yeah, and I realized I took the same approach in speaking as I did with boxing, where I was like, okay, I don't have the natural ability, so I'm just going to outwork everyone, so I'm going to get more fights. Yeah. So I decided, how can I speak more than anyone?
Yeah.
So I bought a van, and I lived in my van for 3 years. I spoke at high schools, middle schools. I emceed galas. I did vegan festivals. I did stand-up comedy. And I lived in that van for 3 years because...
You were literally Matt Foley.
For
real,
bro,
right?
Do you know how I found out? Someone said, because I totaled my Prius and I was getting my insurance money, and my friend was like, oh, you should buy a van and live down by the river. Yeah. And I was like, I don't get it. And then I Googled it. She sent me the link.
And you're like, I'm living this life.
People can live in vans. I never knew, and it never occurred to me.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about living in so many different, traveling to so many different countries is I got to see how many different ways there are to live. Of course, a lot of times we live the way our parents or our family live, but there's so many different ways to live, and I embraced this van lifestyle, and it allowed me to lower my expenses. I didn't have to pay for flights, hotels, or car rentals, and it allowed me to speak for a lower fee, which made me more desirable to more schools. Yeah. And I spoke at 200 schools a year for the first 3 years in that van.
It's a lot.
I wanted to be undeniably good. When I told you my fee, I wanted to get so good that when I told you my fee, you say, you should probably charge more. And then I will. But I could only get there unless I put in that work. So I looked at that 3 years in the van as my college, because I never went to college. And it's like, okay, you got to eat ramen noodles, you got to grind.
Yeah.
Life gonna suck for a little bit.
Yeah.
Get over it.
What was the hardest thing about living in a van for 3 years? If you were to say one thing that would have made it easier.
Can I get two things?
Yeah, you get two things.
Two things. First thing I realized when I packed the van, I packed too many things. And I didn't pack anything. 99% of the things you own, you do not need.
Wow. Hear that, Lynn? No, I'm not preaching to my wife. We agree. We're trying to live the more minimalistic lifestyle. It's just hard to do. Like, we always like, well, what do we throw away? You know? And so she already knows this, but it's like, how'd you do it? I mean, did you achieve it? Did you finally start throwing out the right things?
Well, so it was a year later. I woke up in bed. It was July 4th. It was July 4th, 2017. It was a year from when I made that tweet, I'm going to reinvent myself. And I owned the van, but I didn't have any money to fix it up, to make it nice, to put air conditioning in it. And it was July 4th, and I woke up and I saw like your memory tweet or whatever. It was like, you posted this a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt disgusted in myself for the first time in a long time. As highly as I think of myself. I said, I said I was going to do all these changes, and I didn't really do anything last night. I'm not really doing anything in my life. I'm going to leave now. I was like, I'm going to pack up this van. I don't know where I'm going. And I started packing things in the van. I was like, okay, too many things.
You're like Forrest Gump with a van.
Basically, yes, yes. I was like, time to go. And I packed everything up, and I was like, I'm going to just, because it's hot. It's July in Kansas. I'm like, what? I'm just going to drive north. That was my logic.
Wow.
Don't know where I'm going. I'm going to make it
How'd you pick north?
It's colder, higher, up you go. Right, that was my logic.
All right, yeah.
And I said I would get to Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay.
I would go to Chipotle, and I would sit down, and I'd map up where I'm going next. But I cannot
That's a great
here.
plan, by the way, Chipotle. I mean, good things happen in your head when you're
eating
Chipotle.
Yes.
Yes.
Problem was, packed up the van. I brought 12 shirts. Limited my stuff because I needed space in the van. Got to Des Moines. Chipotle's closed on 4th of July.
Oh,
yeah, I didn't think that out.
Man.
That's how quickly, because I was like, I need to get this done.
Yeah.
And I ended up in Canada, actually. Like, I ended up doing like a festival in Canada, and
way overachiever. You overshot Des Moines by.
I brought my passport. Yeah, I brought my passport.
Good.
And throughout that, I started booking gigs while I was on the road. And by that time, the school year had started back up. I drove down to Arizona because their school year starts in July. So I drove down there at the end of July, and I started speaking at schools for anything. And one school was like, "We loved you." I'm like, "Hey," they're like, "Oh, you're leaving town?" I was like, "Well, I'm in a van. I could stay a little bit longer." So like, "Oh, if you can stay around until next week, we got 2 more schools for you to speak at."
Wow.
And that's what I was. But it was
great, man.
It's 100 degrees at night, bro. That's a metal box with no air conditioning. It was rough.
Did you have a way to sleep outside, like on top of the van or beside the van, or is that just too many rattlesnakes in Arizona?
No, it was. I wouldn't sleep on, like I never thought about considering sleeping on top of the van, but I have the AC. Well, no, I didn't have the AC unit up there. I could have slept on top of the van. I never considered that.
Yeah.
But I would sleep in Walmart parking lots with my back doors open.
I was going to say, what, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
just
sketchy.
The doors open. That's scary, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, like, I realized, like, 1 + 2 = 3. Me becoming 2. Number 2 is becoming a dope speaker, undeniably good. 3 equals the life I want.
Yeah.
The freedom. Because I never grew up with financial freedom. And I said, okay, this is the way I'm going to achieve it. And I can achieve it while speaking at schools and changing lives. Bro, the amount of selfies and high fives I get to do, sometimes I can't sleep at night. It's like you feel like a rock star for a day. First of all, these kids are just happy they're out of class, but then you give them a message that they want to hear and you connect with them. And the thing with middle schoolers, I like to think they're the worst people on the planet because they know what feelings are enough to hurt them, but they haven't developed the empathy to care. So if they don't like you, they will tell you. And I got to learn real quick what was good and what wasn't. And it was, I'm so grateful for.
Do you mean in your speech?
In my speech, they will tell you.
Okay.
And it helped me become who I am.
Yeah.
Another thing that helped me become who I am is you. I invited you to my first talk.
Yes.
One of my first talks.
Yes.
It was like in front of an adult audience.
Yep.
And if I'm being honest, I just wanted to show off that like I was in front of an adult. I'm not talking to kids anymore. And I was like, hey, you want to come out? And you're like, yeah. And you're going to give me feedback. And you showed up with a pen and a pad. And you sat in the corner and you took notes. And I was so glad that you were there because you got to see me kill it. Because I was like,
yeah.
I'm killing it right now. I got off and like I'm shaking everyone's hand and good. And you're like, hey, do you want to meet for coffee? And like, time for you to tell me how great I was. It was time for you to tell me how great I was.
What year was that?
2016.
Wow. Because you would come to your first NSA conference right around then, right after that in Phoenix.
Yeah.
All goes back to Arizona.
Yeah.
Man, I remember that. I remember sitting down. I'm trying to remember now if you asked for feedback or if I volunteered feedback.
You said, are you looking for feedback or an audience?
Before I came. Okay,
and
that's
right. I said feedback because I never thought, but I was like, I'll just say feedback.
Sure.
Because of course it's going to be positive. And then we sat for coffee.
Yeah.
And it was one of the greatest lesson of my speaking career was when you sat me down and I was waiting to just be patted on the back, bro. I was just like, I couldn't.
I know that. People say, like, I've heard it said, like, when you ask for feedback, you're really seeking out a compliment. And I get that. Yeah.
We sat down and the first thing he said is, your introduction. And I was like, oh no. I was like, this is not going where I thought it was going to go. And
wait, the introduction that you give or that they give for you before you come up?
That they gave for me before I came up.
Oh, and they didn't have one. You didn't have one.
You said it wasn't because I let them just choose whatever they said.
Oh, gotcha.
And it wasn't relevant to what I was speaking on or anything like that. Right. And you pointed that out, and then you said my own introduction, and then you broke down kindly, by the way, very kindly.
In humility?
You were, bro, when I tell you I got back to my car after we left Starbucks, and I went from this high of like, I got my first corporate gig to realization. And I sat with it, and it was a discomfort. And I was like, and even though I was like, ooh, I was so grateful for it because I was like, okay, I got so much stuff to work on.
Yeah.
And if you didn't tell me that, I would still now. I have my introduction that I give schools. I have a printed out introduction I bring to schools. I email it beforehand because of you. There's so many things that I do in my speech now because of you. Even you said closing out because I just kind of ended it, and you're like, well, you said sum up what I spoke about, and I never even considered doing that. I thought they just heard me for the last hour. Why do I need to sum up what I said?
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that you gave me that feedback, and I realized that's what we need. We need to, of course, we need to believe in ourselves.
Yeah.
And we need to be delusional.
I love your believe in yourself, be delusional, don't be humble.
But every so often, you need to get back to reality.
Yeah.
And you snapped me back into reality, and I was like, okay. And then I got to school. I changed up the way I was doing everything since that meeting. And still, I can't wait for you to see me speak again.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want feedback.
Because I watched you maybe a year after that speak at a school to youth. Do you remember that? And that was great. I'd seen improvement, you know. Yeah. And I think that's before you hit the van and hit the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what's great about you is that, you know, there's a lot of times where I sit down to coffee and people want feedback. You truly absorb the feedback and you take notes. And anytime, I remember we met for coffee at Black Dog a year or two ago, and I was telling you, like, who prints my business card, and you're writing these things down, and you say, I feel like if someone gives me advice and I don't at least go pursue it and seek it out and give it some attention, then I've kind of wasted this person's time and I haven't really validated them meeting with me. And I think that's just really cool that it doesn't just bounce off you. You absorb and you process, and you either accept it or you reject it. But the fact that you take it in and actually make changes based on the feedback, you know, I mean, that makes someone like, you know, someone who you're pouring into, you feel so much like, okay, I want to pour more in because it's been received well, and you just want to keep giving. Yeah. So kudos to you, man, for just like taking. And that's a hard hit, man, to go from that I'm awesome, I'm speaking to reality.
Best thing ever.
I know that, man.
Best thing ever. And the thing is, because I've seen you speak, I've seen your show. Also, side note, when I first seen you do, I don't like to even call it magic.
Oh, Mentalism, the mind show. Yeah.
I was like, I wonder how this guy's doing it, because how are you pulling a profit? Because I was sure. I went with Shannon.
Profit.
I went with Shannon. I was convinced there's like 100 people in the room. I was convinced 98 of them were paid off actors. It was like, it was the only way. I was like, this whole show just for me and Shannon. It was like the things you were doing were so mind-blowing, your stage presence and everything, and I value you so much as a person and your knowledge that if you give me advice and I waste your time, like when you gave me that advice, I actively avoided you. Because I don't want you, if I said, hey, what do I need to do? And you say, hey, add this to your website. I don't want you to see me again before I've added that to my website.
Right.
Because I'm like, what, am I going to ask you for the same thing twice? And you know when you've given the same person the same advice before, and you're like, well, you're not really taking this.
Right.
So how much deeper are you willing to divulge?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm very big. Everyone I meet, I have notes. I keep my laptop out. I can tell you every single time we've met, every location we've met, and everything you've told me to do.
That's amazing. And you know, I bet like everyone can relate to this story of going from feeling like being delusional, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes like maybe you needed to be delusional to attack that. Maybe if you weren't delusional, like to go along with this whole be delusional thing, maybe if you weren't delusional, you wouldn't have had the confidence to go in and do that gig, to then learn, to then have that low, right? And I remember I had the same kind of thing when I wrote my first motivational speech. I did it for some family members, and I went in thinking I've written this whole script out. I've interjected some magic tricks, some audience participation, and I went in, and it was like it was just like a train wreck. It was just like I was just talking and talking. They were just sitting there like, and it was like this. I got in the car with my wife afterwards because it was her side of the family, and I was like, okay, I have nothing. Like I have so much work to do. But it was that I didn't even need feedback. I got the feedback from the people sitting on the couch.
Feedback.
I got my feedback I needed. But it didn't make me quit. It made me go, okay, this is ground zero. Now how do we go from here? And that's what I see in you, man. And you just like haven't stopped. You just
the thing is, I'm not special.
Man. You know?
Like, of course, I call myself awesome. I name myself awesome, but I don't think I'm special. I think everything I have, you have, and everyone else has. Mm-hmm. No one's any better than anyone else. It's just the work that we're willing to put in, and what we think we're capable of determines a lot about our actions. Mm-hmm. And so when I say delusion, I don't actually mean it, because in reality, I could achieve those things. Like people would say it would be delusional for not being able to make your high school basketball team or any team sport to becoming the number one boxer in the country in 2 years. Like when I walked to the gym every day, I was having those talk to myself in the delusional way of like, you can do this, can't nobody beat you, you're the best. And eventually you start to believe yourself. So it's no longer delusion. But what happens is other people might think it's delusion. So what we do is we end up doing what other people think we can do. So I'm like, okay, maybe, I think I can go to the Olympics, but it kind of sounds crazy if I say it out loud. So I'm just going to say I'm going to do what they think I'm capable of doing. So remember I said I didn't tell anyone for my first 4 boxing matches, I didn't tell anyone because I didn't think they would think I was a boxer. And Charles Horton, I think, I saw his quote years later. I'm not what I believe I am. I am not what you believe I am. I am what I think you think I am. And now that I look back at my story, I was like, oh, going to the gym, like in high school in New York, I grew up in high school in New York, and I was super awkward, and I didn't have many friends, and I was a shell of myself. And in my senior year of high school, my parents moved to Florida, and that's why I had to walk 6 miles to the gym. But when I got to Florida, I realized, oh, none of these people know who I am. I can be anyone I want to be. I can adopt my mom's English accent. No one will know the difference. So I decided I was going to be a culmination of cool people in New York I went to school with and like camp counselors. It's like I would say what I think they would say. I would do what I would carry myself the way they would. And everyone in Florida believed that was me. A month before I graduated high school, I went back to my old school to do my graduation there. And I couldn't wait to get back to show everyone this new confident person. And the second I walked through those high school doors, I like reverted into even my posture, everything about myself. And now I look back, I realize I was being who I thought they thought I was. And they thought I was that same person before, and I couldn't change that. And then I went back to Florida. I quickly, as soon as I graduated, I went back to Florida. I was like, I'm never going back to New York because I don't like who people think I am there.
So your mom had a British accent?
Yeah, she's from England.
You're from England. So it sounds like if you were to like really be true to what you believe at your core, which is like it only matters what you believe, you wouldn't be caring what all these other people think about you. That wouldn't be changing your behavior.
Yeah.
You would just be focused on, this is who I am. I believe in myself, so I'm going to be the real me right now. But you couldn't do that back then because you were too, you had too, what's when you're fixated on something? You were too fixated with like what they were thinking about you that it was sort of paralyzing you. You couldn't be free to just like be the new you. Right?
I will say, I say it a lot, and like it sounds obnoxious, arrogant, all that, but it's possible to think better of yourself. When I say I changed my last name to Awesome, I didn't come back from the courthouse and was like, okay guys, I'm awesome. I was still a little bit depressed. I was still not 100% there, but it gave me the hope to to keep going, or the delusion, or people call it delusion, and I think it's funny to call it delusion, so I refer to it as that.
Sure, okay.
But it didn't happen overnight. And a year later, I wasn't awesome. Like, my book that's coming out is called Becoming Awesome, because I think everything you do is working towards who you want to be. And if you aren't who you want to be, why are you doing the same thing that you're doing? And I've kind of taken that approach, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I still have insecurities that I work on. I still have parts of myself that I believe is flawed that I'm continuing to work on. But the whole idea of becoming awesome is fixing those things and knowing that I can. And even like seeing your feedback.
Yeah.
Accepting reality and understanding I can change it.
Yeah. So one thing I heard you say in one of your speeches, I think it was to the students, right, was do hard things. And I love that. That stuck with me, because I believe the same thing. I think that if we want to grow, we got to do the hard things. And right now I've quit coffee again. I don't know if I'm going to quit coffee, but now I've been drinking mud water. So I take cold showers. I think that makes us stronger. I mean, it does good things for your body. So I do believe in this doing hard things, right? I believe like with your work, you got to put in the work to, the marketing, building your team up to get to a place where you want to go. What hard things are you doing like on a daily basis that you feel like are helping propel you forward to the next thing?
One thing I do is being sharp. I think it takes a lot of us. We're naturally, we go towards the least resistance. And what I found is if you put more effort in the front end of things, you become more efficient all the way around.
Okay.
So I believe, like this morning, I show up early.
Yeah, he was here before I got here.
One thing you can control, you're not going to beat me somewhere. And I'll show up somewhere early and I'll get work done there. So when you walk in, I'm already getting that. I'm in workflow, and then we get stopped.
Like the Brian Regan bit. I'm making money right now. I'm getting on the plane.
Yeah, and that's that. And I'm like, okay, those are the things. Those little things. Everyone's thinking about the big changes. I'm like, what are these small changes we can make in our lives? And these things are difficult. Going to bed early. I realize and I figured this out during the pandemic. We wind down during, everybody's time is different, but we wind down in the evening. Let's say I start winding. When are you, well, you're a parent.
Yeah.
So, but I'll speak on myself. I start winding down.
You're like, you're worthless to me right now in this scenario. You're a parent, so there's no normal. I love that you know that.
Yeah, I was like, you can't just go to sleep when you want to go to sleep. So I totally get that. But I find I start winding down my productivity around 6, 7 o'clock. I don't do anything.
Okay.
And I realize.
Do you get off screens at that point too? Because they say the blue light can affect your sleep. Do you? I don't know what your rules are.
I get off professional screens. Like I get off my laptop or same laptop, but it's Netflix.
Okay, but you might. Okay, gotcha.
But it's nothing productive that I'm doing. I'm like watch Netflix, hang out, and I realize I spend most of my money and consume most of my calories between the hours of 8 p.m. and midnight.
Yes, I could see that. That because Chipotle delivers now.
Oh.
You know what I say now? Like it just started happening. But yeah, I mean, dude, once I discovered Chipotle delivery, it's dangerous.
Here's why I can't do Chipotle delivery.
Here's why I love it. You just have a rule that you just can't do it.
Because I don't want them to short. Like I want to look you in the eyes while you scoop the rice.
Yeah.
And look a little deeper if I don't get enough rice.
Oh, really?
Because then when you get your to-go order, it's small.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm there, like, extra rice, and I will get the order, and after you put the salsa, I'm like, hey, can we go back and add a little extra rice to that?
See, that's funny, because I'm the annoying guy who is always telling them, hey, half scoop of rice. Okay, a little bit more. Because I'm very, like, I watch my the whole calorie thing.
Oh,
1 + 2 = 3. I'm always trying to lose 20 pounds. You know what I mean? So it's like, I know that everything adds up on a Chipotle burrito, and it's like less beans, less rice, less guac, less meat. Otherwise, I'm just like, never going to meet any kind of goals. So anyway, okay.
Yeah.
But 8 and 10 p.m., so that's when...
But between 8 and midnight.
Midnight, okay.
And those are 4 hours. So I started going to bed at 8.
Wow. And you can fall asleep? Like,
not at first.
Okay, all right.
Not at first. But regardless, I was waking up at 4:45. And it sucked. Doing hard things, first 10 days sucked.
Yeah.
And then eventually I started falling asleep earlier.
Huh.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
And then I realized I would work from 5 a.m. till 10 a.m., 5 hours.
Yeah.
Uninterrupted.
Yeah.
And by the time most people clock in and start getting at work, I'm done with my workday.
That's my most productive time too, early morning hours. Like when I'm most focused. Yeah. That's crazy.
And and that kind of changed the way I was spending my time. And now like I have to rechange it because I'm doing comedy at night.
Okay.
Again, I'm I can't wake up at 5 a.m. anymore.
Yeah.
But doing difficult things, and it's like I believe life is a game of cards, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't like the way the hand is being dealt, you have to shuffle the deck. Shuffling the deck looks like doing things completely different.
Yeah. Well, and you do open mics, speaking of doing hard things. That you're not afraid of open mics like most new people are, but just the fact that you're getting your reps in, that's hard, right? Yeah. To just stick with it. It's like when you lose the weight. That was hard, but to keep it off.
Maintain
So to keep doing these open mics, because you're always like, what's the next story? What's the next bit that I can even add to my motivational speech, right? I mean, you're doing it for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah,
right?
I see, and I'm competitive in a sense in everything I do. When I see someone killing something, I'm like, yeah, it's possible. I'm gonna kill it too. So I never see it as like, oh, I'm mad at they're killing it. Like, no, you're just showing if you can do it, I can do it.
Yes.
And you would say, I can do it, Cam. You can do it as well. Like, it's just weird for me to say it out loud because that's the whole humility thing, right?
Yeah.
But no, I can do it too.
Yeah.
And so I have this concept of the top 5. So anything you do in life, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most, right? So I think of it industry-wise. So like in boxing, I have a specific top 5. The first in the top 5 is first person out of the 5 that you hang out with is the pinnacle. That's like, and to me it was Muhammad Ali. And you don't need to spend time with this person or know them personally for them to be in that, because that's the top of the game. That's the goal. All right, I'm getting to him. He's at the top.
And by the way, how much did his influence of the defense and the dodging have to do with your whole defensive stance with boxing? Was that everything to you?
No, it was actually, I don't care for Muhammad Ali's boxing, actually.
Oh, okay.
It was his personality. Oh, okay. In boxing, I've met so many people in the road, a lot of older guys and or women, they're like, I met Muhammad Ali 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And everyone who tells me that has an amazing story of how he made them feel. I've never met someone who said, oh yeah, I met Ali, that guy was great. It was like, no, I met Ali and guess what happened? And he stole my pen and like,
oh wow.
And I realized that's who I want to be. I want to be that person that changes people's lives. I don't care for his boxing so much. The reason why I did the defense was a guy named Emmanuel Augustus. He was called the Drunken Warrior. He had a losing record as a boxer. He wasn't that great, but he had fun. But so the pinnacle.
Okay,
the
so
first one is a pinnacle.
Sidetracked you big time.
The first one's a pinnacle. The second person is someone who, let's say in the boxing world, is better than you. So someone in the gym who's more experienced, who's been doing it longer.
Yeah.
Look at that person. Maybe Ali is not attainable right now, but that person is. You're with them every day. If they go for a run, you go for a run. You do what they do because they became great. And you're always chasing that second person. That third person, someone who is just as good as me, same experience level and everything, and this person is my friend, my peer. I will never let them get better than me. And that's also their job too. They should never let me get better than them. And any opportunity I have, I'm going to try to make them better.
Yeah.
Because it's going to force me to be better.
That one, just to pause, reminds me of in soccer in high school for conditioning, we would do a thing called the 12-minute run. Just how many laps can you make around the track in 12 minutes? And me and this guy named Jake Brown always would do it together, shoulder to shoulder. Just would run it, and we'd be pushing each other. And it was kind of like, you're not gonna. I'm gonna beat you, and he would say the same thing. But we were like always like the first finishers, you know. And if I didn't have him there at my side, I wouldn't have done it that quickly.
Yes.
You know, so I can see that analogies. That's great.
Another analogy I heard of that, and I don't remember. You know the Budweiser horses?
Yes, the Clydesdales.
Clydesdales.
Yeah.
One Clydesdale can pull 10 tons. How many do you think 2 can pull?
Interesting. Well, I would say 20.
You would
30?
think 35.
Wow.
Because they're competitive and they'll never let another horse outrun them.
Wow, that's crazy.
So when you have someone next to you to compete with, a lot of us don't like competition. But I think competition is the best thing for you. It doesn't have to be hateful competition. It's to help push you.
Yeah.
And
totally.
So that boxer in the gym, if he went for a 3-mile run, I went for 3.5. If he jumped rope for 20 minutes, I did 25. He is not going to be better than me.
Yeah. And what's great about having that kind of relationship, because I have that with actually Todd Lemansky, who was on a previous podcast episode, after gigs, usually for me after keynote, after a magic show, we call each other and we'll be like, hey, this went really well. And we never see it as braggy, because it's like, man, I crushed in this area or did this. And because we can both do that because we're like peers, you know, where you could also tell a mentor that. But it's hard to tell people who are, up and coming, hey, man, I went in and crushed or whatever, because it's like, okay, but you would probably say, well, don't be humble, just do it and, bring them up.
My question, did you crush?
Have I ever? Haven't we all?
But a lot of times you wouldn't tell someone who's like doing better than like crushed. Why?
Yeah.
But you did. Why wouldn't you want to?
Well, I would tell someone above me, because they'd be proud of, like Mark Mayfield.
Yeah.
Right? A mentor to both of us.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Mark, this went really well, and I did this joke, this tag that you gave me, or whatever. But to someone low, I don't think you couldn't tell them that you didn't like, let's say they're like, I just bombed.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing like comedians,
yeah.
Right? I just bombed. You want to be like, oh, well, I just crushed in a better audience for better money.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to be humble in your tone to that person and gentle, so that you don't just crush their spirits entirely. Like, hey, man,
you can be obnoxious.
It did go well for me. Keep in mind, I've been doing this longer, man. You got this, dude. I remember being there, bombing in those same scenarios. You can do this. So I think there's
well, that's you pulling them up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
pulling them up in a tone of humility. So that's. I think we probably agree more than maybe we think on the humility thing.
Yeah, and it's on the wall concept. And the thing is, I throw it out there, and I'm not. It's a concept I'm still working on. I'm not 100% done completing. That's why I haven't used it on stage or anything like that. But it's a concept that's been floating around my mind. Of idea of humility.
Right on.
Number 4 person in this.
Notice how I keep pausing you. I'm not going to let you finish this. No, I love this. This is so good, man.
Yeah.
It resonates, obviously.
And it can change different industries. So even that number 2 person could be your mentor in whatever your industry is.
Okay.
So the number 4 person for me was a boxer who wasn't as experienced as I was, but was just as hungry as I was. So he wasn't as good as me.
Okay.
So to me, I'm his number 2. He's my number 4.
Okay.
All right?
Got it.
And he should... First of all, I'll never let him be better than me. And I'm going to give him all the tools to do it because he needs to push me to be better. And if he ever does, I'm happy for him.
Sure.
With that person, they're looking up to you. Be that example. Be kind to them. Be to them what you want number 2 to be to you. If you see like they perform or they had a fight or something, and you're like, they did well, just shoot them a text like, hey man, great job. Because to me, that validation means so much for someone who's lost, if you don't know your path. When I first was going for my first national championship, a guy named Rashid Warren, he was like a 3-time Olympian. I sent him a message on MySpace. I was like, hey man, I'm going to be going to my first nationals and I can't wait to see you. I heard a lot about you. And he responded, see you there, champ. Screenshots weren't a thing back then, man. But I was on cloud. I started training hard. I was like, oh, Rashid Warren's like, he knows who I am.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And if that's what you could do for that number 4 person. You can give them that motivation, that drive.
Yeah.
And the 5th person is the most important person. It's you. Why would those other 4 people want to spend time with you if you wouldn't want to spend time with yourself? Are you the best version of yourself? And you can't progress if you aren't. So that's the way I looked at that, and I took that same model from boxing and I brought it into speaking. And it's a little more abstract because boxing's very objective, whereas like you win or you don't.
Yeah.
So speaking is a little more of an abstract concept, but we have like Mark Mayfields and we have Kerry Phillips and we have these people that we look up to who've done it before, and those are the people I constantly look up to. And you are that person for me, actually. You're not my number 3, you're my number 2, buddy. Okay? And I see the things you do and I see the places you're performing and I'm like, okay, it's possible. Might not get it this year, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we can figure anything out. We might not figure it out our first try, but again, if you can fail without being discouraged, success is inevitable.
I love that, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So number 5, we talk about spending time with these people. How do you spend time with yourself?
Well, that was the second thing of the 2 difficult things in the van. First thing was the amount of stuff that I can bring in. Second thing was how lonely it was. It's lonely. I mean,
I bet. I mean, I feel lonely when I go out for 2 days and I can still text my wife and everything, but I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was so lonely, and when I got to the van, I was like, okay, I'm done drinking because this is my livelihood. So I stopped drinking when I was in the van. I was like, okay, I lost that kind of social connect with people. Because usually old Cam, I go to karaoke, go to a bar,
Yeah.
I sing a song that no one expects I know the words to, I get off, someone high-fives me, I buy that person a shot. Boom, I'm in with their group for the night.
What is that song, by the way?
It's just an array of them.
Okay. I don't know if you had one go-to that people are like, what? Isaac's Baby?
So, I know that one, but the Isley
Who
Brothers,
doesn't?
Contagious,
Okay,
and R.
alright.
Kelly, and I sing all 3 parts in different voices.
Oh, wow.
And stand in
That's
different
great.
parts of the stage. I make it like a...
Nice.
and
Dude,
none of these people will ever see me again, so it doesn't matter if I make a fool of myself.
Heck yeah, man.
And
That's great.
and there's just so many people to connect with.
So in the van, do you start to develop a different relationship with yourself and be more disciplined about the time? Like, I'm going to read more, I'm going to meditate more, I'm going to pray more, I'm going to, work out differently. Or what does it look like to change that relationship with yourself when you're because there's probably a lot of people, I know there's people who are lonely, who are even with other people all the time. They're in families, they're in work environments, they're not in a van alone in the desert. What do you do when you feel lonely? How can you culture that relationship with yourself?
So one of the things I started to do was the idea of like I should be reading more. It took a long time for that to set in. Because it was like, okay, I guess I'll just park in this McDonald's and use their Wi-Fi and download some stuff from Netflix and you have just so much time. It seems like there's nothing to do with all the time. And then I look back at 6 months. I was like, well, I did a lot of speaking, but I did nothing else. And then I started to read and I started to do those things. But one of the things that really kind of changed the way I looked at everything was I started volunteering because like everybody needs help. And whether it's a dog shelter or like
Cool.
I do a lot of farms, and you just go and do farm work with people.
Man, volunteering, what did that do for your spirit, just being giving?
First of all, everyone who is there volunteering, even if they're on community service, it's like it's a different energy, and like it's very supportive, and it's like a kindness that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's like just for the people are just there for the good. And I was able to make so many connections with so many different people because of that. And I kind of built communities in each city. And a lot of it was kind of vegan based because I would go to farms because they were always there to help and they would give you food. And that was a really, really cool part with me was like to get into volunteering in all those places and meet with people and hear people's stories.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you. Yeah. So as we kind of start to, Cam's probably like, we gotta. We're gonna be rolling out of this pretty soon. But while we're kind of still in the vein, like we're talking about, you just came out of the mentorship thing. Will you share the Jay-Z, Kanye illustration you shared with me? Because I talked beforehand about helping people, and sometimes you're helping people who are potentially going to be your competition or who are your competition. That like Cam and I are in the same market basically in terms of speaking here in Kansas City, and there might be times where we're competing for the same gig. I don't know that it's ever actually happened, but it could. So I can help him, he can help me. And I've always shared that illustration that if you light someone else's flame, it takes nothing away from your flame, but you can burn brighter together.
Yes, I love that.
But as we were talking about that, you shared the thing about Jay-Z. Would you just share that with them?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Jay-Z. The way he's handled his business, the way he So the reason why I transitioned from sports into speaking is because I saw the way Jay-Z transitioned from. Well, I transitioned from sports into business.
Sure.
The business of speaking.
Sure.
I saw the way Jay-Z transformed from music into business.
Okay.
And I saw the way he carried himself, and he kind of he's my number one in the business world.
All right.
That's my number one.
Okay.
I don't have to meet him or anything like that.
Sure.
But I aspire to him, and he was the first rapper to hit $1 billion, which is like crazy. And then Kanye West, his protege, hit the $1 billion club, but passed Jay-Z. And I was like, ooh, I wonder if Jay-Z's like, ooh,
Sure.
a little competitive about that. And I heard Jay-Z speak about it in an interview. He said he got to his billion the way he got to his billion. And he made sure when he got there, he wanted to help other people get there as well. And if he would have had a Jay-Z to help him get to where he was, he would be further than where he is now. And he sees Kanye West's success as a branch of his own success. And I was like, oh yeah, we just burn brighter together, man.
Yeah, that's great. I love that illustration, man. That's a crazy awareness from him, and I love that you absorbed that and shared that. So, man, thank you. So I just a couple final questions for you, and appreciate that. But I do love how you noticed that, like, I should have hit the record button as soon as I walked into the room because because we had breakfast together first, and it was like I was like, wait, save because that's too good. Don't go deeper with that. But it's like, It's always this rich talking with Cam, and I appreciate that. I also love just your humility, even with your idea about humility. Yeah. You're kind of like, I don't know, it's this thing that I'm thinking about, but I love how you're always thinking. You're always creative, but you're always like, but I might be wrong about this, But I'm going to go ahead and say it, see how it feels, see how it lands, and then go from there. Kind of like that start ugly idea. So
yeah, just being imperfectionist.
Yes,
I think
imperfectionist.
So much
great,
wait.
Man.
We wait till things are right. Like I told you, I have my first book coming out. There's some holes in it. There's gonna be some. I've never written a book before, so now I'm by my third book. I'm like, oh, now I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, and you gain that knowledge, but until I release that first one, I'll never get to the third one.
Yeah.
And how many of us are waiting until things are perfect to get them started?
I think so many people wait way too long for version 1.0, thinking that's the one that needs to be perfect. It's like, no, that's the mess.
Yeah.
Get through that, work through it, and get to 2.0 and keep going from there.
And it's important to keep 1.0. Like, don't forget, if you can record whatever it is, because then you get to see your growth. So you start podcast 1. Sure, podcast 1 might be trash.
Yeah.
Podcast 15
it might be. I don't know yet.
But podcast 15 is going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
And then when you get to podcast 130,
sure,
it's going to be a whole different production, and you'll look. But after you get to podcast 150. Go back and just watch podcast 1.
I remember Ed Sheeran did that on one of the talk shows where he was like watching they had him watch old footage of himself, and he's just like, oh my gosh, and if he's doing that, can't we all? I love that. Save 1.0. Yeah. That's gold, man. I love it. Well, awesome. Okay, well, hey, before we kind of conclude here, and I do have just a couple questions left. So I'm gonna on one of them, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I do this with all the guests. So
I'm ready for it.
All right. It really made one of the guests freeze up. Like, I don't know. But it's all good. So thanks once again to Exit Rashani for hosting this. Hey, go to YouTube at Devin Henderson Speaker for the full experience. Subscribe, like it if this episode meant anything to you at all. Also, if you were inspired, on Apple or Spotify, if you're listening, please rate, please comment. That helps us extend our reach and get messages like Cam's to more people. So one thing too, wherever you're, whatever platform you're on, comment. Let us know what is one thing that Cam said that made you decide to do something differently in your life today. So, okay, awesome. With that, how can people connect with you? We'll link your website, but go ahead and tell us that, Cam.
CamFawesome.com and at CamFawesome on all social media platforms, because I'm not famous enough for anyone to steal my name yet.
At Cam F awesome. Okay, so
please stress
awesome.
the F.
Yeah. Perfect. Yes. Yeah, you got it. Okay. And then Cam, you have a product which I told you I'm going to start doing some affiliate. My goal is to start doing some affiliates with some products I really believe in, like this one right here. That some of you know what this is, the magical liquid in this can, but hopefully that's coming soon that I can talk more about that. But you have your own product, and you're going to be starting up a podcast again. That's the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan.
And you have your own. What is your product, man?
I love the concept of business, and when I got into the speaking business, first of all, I thought, like, I'm just going to become a good speaker.
Yeah.
Very little to do with the speaking business when you turn it. And now I'm starting to learn more about business. I decided to start my own, and they said, if you're going to start a product that you need and you would use every day.
Okay.
And when I bought the van, it came with the seat cover.
Yeah.
So like when I was sweaty, I didn't want to sweat in my van, so I would put the seat cover on the seat, and then every so often I would wash it.
Yeah.
Not as much as I should have, but.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah.
So do we ever?
No.
When I think of a van that you live in, I think of one of those seat covers that's the wooden beads that are strung together. No. Did you not have one of those?
No. I didn't hippie van it out. Didn't have the budget for it.
Yeah.
But
he didn't have the budget to be a hippie. I love it.
Yeah. Things were rough back then. But I got the seat cover, and I loved it so much. And even when I stopped using the van, I still took the seat cover and I put it in my Prius.
Yeah.
And people in the gym were like, oh, man, where'd you get that from? And everyone was asking me about it. And I was like, oh, no, it came with the van. And one day I saw there's a website, and I checked the website. The website's closed down. The company is closed down. So I was like, okay. I took it. I shipped it to China. I had them remake it.
Wow.
Send it back, get samples, and they sent to me, and they're on Amazon right now, and I'm starting to sell them. And I realized that I couldn't find, because I wanted sponsors as a speaker and my podcast and all that, and I was like, I can't find someone who thinks I'm worthy of being sponsored. So if I can't find someone to believe in me, I'm going to believe in myself, and I'm just going to do it my own. It might take a little bit longer, but I'm so grateful that I'm taking this route, because there's so much I'm learning about business and shipping and handling and different concepts of generating different streams of income that I would have never learned if I wasn't going through this procedure. And even if I did this for a year and I broke even, it would be so worth it from the things I've already learned from this.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so how can we can just link to the product in the show notes. What's it called? Seat cover.
It's called No Sweat Seats.
No Sweat Seats. Okay,
No Sweat Seats.
I'm not even an affiliate, but I believe in this man, and
You
I
might
want you
be,
to
man.
go buy that. So yeah, maybe we'll do an affiliate.
Yeah.
So maybe this will be my first product is yours. So
I
we'll
would
link
be
to it.
honored.
Okay, awesome. Maybe we'll get that set up
Side
before
note,
we. Yeah.
I'm also honored that you, because I do think you're my number 2 on that list, and you're the person who got me into speaking, and I thought it was so cool that you asked me to be on your podcast, and I wouldn't say I was humbled by it, but I would say I was certainly surprised.
Oh, that's funny. Maybe a little bit delusional. I don't know where that
Maybe you're
fits
delusional
into
to
it.
think I should be on this
Maybe
podcast.
so.
Yeah. But yeah,
I think I'm good enough to have awesome on. And no, that's great. Well, and by the way, and I know we're wrapping up, but like this is how it is with Cam. You just it's always fun, man. When I saw you do the open mic, I was like, there's more to this guy, because I saw, man, this guy's a boxer. He's got this history of tough childhood growing up. I was like, man, there's a story there, and that's all any speaker needs is a story, which we all have, as we learned with Will Severns, back in the Tell Your Story episode. But you had this story. I was like, this story needs to be told, and the fact that you already are comfortable on stage and you're funny, you're like 80% of the way there. I don't know how I chose 80. But
I like 80. I like 80, man. That's the other half.
You're so close, and so it's like, let's just get this guy, connected with the speaking community. And so it's just been awesome, dude, that you have risen to the challenge and done it. You did it, man. You're doing it, and you're just always growing. So it's really, really cool to watch that and just see this growth, man. So congratulations on everything, man.
Thank you, man. I'm just trying to get my Devin on.
And yeah, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. So, okay, all right. And here's the last one, the one that's like just one piece of advice for my daughters. Piece of life advice. What could you tell them?
Don't base what you can do off of what others couldn't. There's a lot of people out there who will tell you, hey, you shouldn't do that because they've done it and they got burned, or they weren't capable of accomplishing it and they were heartbroken. And a lot of times we try to save other people the embarrassment or try to guide them away from failure. But I realized everything I did, everything I failed, is why I am. Like 2008, lost the Olympic trials. 2012, won the Olympic trials, got kicked off. 2016, won the Olympic trials, didn't make it to the Olympics. Signed up for the 2020 Olympic trials, flew to Trinidad and Tobago, my dad's home country, got my dual citizenship, fought in the Olympic trials, won by knockout, returned to the U.S., continued to speak living in the van because I had to fund myself. Then the pandemic happened and I didn't get to go. I believe if I were to tell someone back when I was walking to high school that I was going to go to 4 Olympic trials, they would probably tell me, maybe you should try college. So I would tell your daughters, do what you want, understand there's going to be consequences that come with it, but don't base what you're going to do based off what others couldn't.
Wow, okay. Hear that, girls? That's sound advice. Awesome. All right, we're going to wrap by, I do this with my audience. I say, what else? And they say, is possible. Because when you embrace the possibility mindset, you never stop asking. So I'll say, what else? You say is possible. Okay. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Never stop asking the question, what else?
And what's possible.
We'll see you next time.